Kako, and welcome to this virtual introduction to the University of Hawaii at Manoa Library's University Archives and Manuscript Collections Department. I am Leilani Dawson. I'm the chair of the department and also the Manuscript Collections Archivist. I'm speaking to you today from the endpoint of the lower of those two pink arrows, which points to the construction site for Hamilton Library, which is the building that I'm in now, which is located in the Ili'aina of Pilipili in the Ahupua'a of Waikiki on the Mokopuni of Oahu. As a settler and as a descendant of settlers to Hawaii, I am deeply grateful for the generations of Indigenous Hawaiians who have used their knowledge systems to shape Hawaii in sustainable ways. And I hope that my work and the work of the Archives Department reciprocates and supports those continuing efforts today. What is now the University Archives and Manuscript Collections Department was formed from several groups of archival records, artist papers, oral histories, special collections, and related material that were originally held by the library's Hawaiian collection. For example, the Hawaii War Records Depository was formed at UH by an act of the territorial legislature in 1943. And many decades later, the Hawaii Congressional Papers collection was formed as a result of the acquisition of the Spark Matsunaga Papers in 1997. We acquired our first few Japanese-American veterans collections, other than Spark Matsunaga's papers, starting in the mid-2000s. And in 2009, the University Archives and Manuscript Collections were separated from the Hawaiian collection to form its own department within the library. Shortly thereafter, the University Archivists, the Hawaii Congressional Papers Collection, and the Manuscript Collections each came under the guidance of their own full-time faculty archivist, who together made up the professional staff of the department until 2020 last year, when we welcomed the art archivist and her Charlot collection into the department. Currently, the archives is staffed by 4 archivists, 1 archives assistant, and a variety of interns, volunteers, and paid student interns. Each of the archivists, as well as our archives assistant, will be speaking to you in our ensuing video segments of various aspects of the archives and the management of our collections. And so thank you for checking us out.
Aloha kako. My name is Dawn Sueoka, and I am the Congressional Papers Archivist at the University of Hawaii at Manoa Library. And I'll be talking a little bit today about the Hawaii Congressional Papers collection. And I wanted to start by very briefly situating these collections historically, because I think that this context is relevant to all aspects of these collections. So the Hawaiian Kingdom, which was at that time a constitutional monarchy, was overthrown in 1893 by a group of mostly American businessmen with the aid of the American minister to Hawaii and the U.S. Marines. Hawaii was annexed and became a U.S. territory in 1898 and became the 50th state in 1959. Although Hawaii had sent a non-voting delegate to Congress throughout the territorial period, our library's collection focuses on Hawaii's post-statehood, that is, post-1959 delegates to Congress. So for Hawaii, this means, of course, 2 senators and also 2 representatives. What the term papers means when it comes to congressional collections is the documentation produced during the member's career in Congress, and also sometimes documentation of their lives and careers before and after their congressional service. This doesn't just include the records produced by the members of Congress themselves. It also includes the records produced by the staff of their Washington, D.C. And their district offices, sometimes over the course of 50 years or more. Our library is really privileged to be able to steward the papers of these Hawaii members of Congress. And I've included the extents in there just to give you a sense of how large some of these collections can be. And I also wanted to indicate too, not all of the collections are the full organizational records of these offices. As you can see, some of them are smaller collections of memorabilia. Congressional papers are significant because they document the real-time, complicated deliberations and strategy, and oftentimes the long legislative slog that happens behind the headlines of the day. These are some of the fundamental primary sources that scholars and historians rely on in order to understand our political history and in order to narrate and share those complicated, multifaceted stories. Hawaii's members of Congress have been leaders in areas such as civil rights, education, agriculture, shipping, and defense, as well as issues such as healthcare, education, and federal recognition that affect Hawaii's Native Hawaiian communities. And so our congressional collections document all of that. You can learn more about the Hawaii Congressional Papers collection on our website. So here you'll find links to a small Omeka image collection, to LibGuides, to our ArchiveSpace finding aids, and also to our department's blog. So thank you very much for your time.
Hello, I'm Helen Wong-Smith, archivist for University Records. Well, the University of Hawaii was founded in 1907. We did not have a dedicated archivist until 1968. And until recently, one person was responsible for all the collections. So you'll see some overlap in our collections here. What I have here in the University Archives are, of course, administrative records. And these are often utilized for a number of reasons, especially since most of them have not been digitized and are in a variety of legacy indices and finding aids. So that takes a little bit more of our effort to do discovery. We have a wide range of units that we cover. So some of the more popular, one of the more popular ones is the Romanzo Adams Social Research Laboratory, which was conducted with students from the 1920s to 60s, and they would go out into the communities and conduct interviews and a wide range of research regarding race relations, cultural organizations, and such. And some of the information that they gathered never passed an IRB review today. So this is a resource, that a collection that is sought after internationally. So we have records that maybe at the time of acquisition, they may not have been considered very important, and of course they are now. Alice Ball is now being recognized as the person who discovered the cure for leprosy and is being covered in books and films internationally, and now being credited with her discovery. Well, of course, any collection that has photographs is going to be requested all the time. And Masao Miyamoto was our photographer for 41 years here on campus from 1936. And so we have such a variety of coverage by Masao. You'll see bomb shelter here on campus and the different ethnicities in the beauty pageant. And not only did he take pictures of faculty, portraits of faculty, but of international students as well. So you have, we have Barack Obama Sr. here. And then such buildings and landscapes such as the Eastwood Center, which was designed by I.M. Pei. That was a brainchild of Senator Lyndon Johnson. So we also have the collections of faculty, of course. I'm collecting more and more of these. And rather than put them in finding aids on their website, they're being entered into ArchivesSpace. So one example is the Mitsuoki papers that I'm digitizing and got a grant to combine the paper records with his videos that he that are being kept at the Ulu'ulu Moving Image Archives in Hawaii. And with that, we'll have this collaboration going that we'll be able to have all of his records and products in one place. So this is just some of the information that we have, and I hope you'll come in.
Aloha, my name is Malia Van Huklum, and I am the Art Archivist Librarian here at the University of Hawaii at Manoa's Hamilton Library. I manage the Jean Charlot Collection and the Archive of Hawaii Artists and Architects. The Jean Charlot Collection is by far the largest and most complex of the collections under my care. It has a dedicated reading room for the artist's library, his personal papers, his master set of prints, as well as material relating to the other artists and architects he knew and worked with. It is a massive collection. This is where I process collections, host tours, and class visits. Charlot was born in France, active in the Mexican mural movement in his 20s, and worked across the United States pursuing mural and teaching gigs. And he came to the University of Hawaii in 1949 to do a mural for our administration building. And he was invited to teach a class and later joined the faculty and stayed here the rest of his life. And that's why the collection is here. This is our website, which was completely redone in 2018. The entire library website was redone for ADA compliance and to streamline collections. And so every special research collection has a dedicated page, but this didn't allow me the space to talk about the other art and architecture collections. So you'll notice that I have a lot of links on the page that take you out to other places. I've used the research guides, which appear prominently on the library's homepage. So I'm hoping that this will get people who aren't familiar with special collections and archives to be able to explore and learn more about them. And then we do use ArchivesSpace, so I've linked out to that for people who know what it is and want to look at a finding aid for the collection. But this is just essentially a virtual brochure, and it talks about all of Charlot's creative output and the other art represented in the collection. It has audiovisual materials and books that are linked to the library's catalog. Vladimir Osipov was one of Hawaii's best-known architects. This is the second most requested collection under my care. And so I created a dedicated research guide for this. Again, it links to ArchivesSpace as well as other online sources. And I even included a little video tutorial on how to figure out what drawings are in the collection by searching ArchivesSpace. I've mentioned some of the other art and architecture collections here so that people can learn about them, but this one is the one that is requested by students, faculty, community users, preservation architects, and even homeowners. Finally, I created a research guide for the other Hawaii artists' archives here under my care. And this is just to give a single page for each artist to aggregate their writings and a biographical note so people can learn more about them, and also to link to ArchivesSpace to look at a finding aid. Thank you for your interest.
Hello again. Once again, I am Leilani Dawson, the Manuscript Collections Archivist, and I will now be talking a little bit about the different collecting areas within the Manuscript Collections, as well as some of the outreach efforts that I and the other archivists use to raise awareness of our materials. So to start out with, we have the Hawaii War Records Depository, which was created during World War II to document the war's impact on the islands and also the service of locals who joined the U.S. Army forces to serve abroad. It includes materials in a wide variety of formats and genres, everything from propaganda, ephemera, artwork, governmental reports, publications, clippings, diaries, oral histories, AV materials, and much more. And the materials come from not only the federal, territorial, and local governments, as well as the military government that ruled the territory during the period of martial law, but also civic, business, and social and religious organizations, as well as individual civilians. Next, we have the Japanese American Veterans Collections, which actually started out as an offshoot of the Hawaii War Records Depository. It became an official sub-collection in the 2000s. The Japanese American Veterans Collections document the service of Japanese American veterans, soldiers during World War II, who served in the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, the 100th Battalion, Military Intelligence Service, and a couple of smaller related units in the U.S. Army. The materials document not only their wartime service, but also their post-war lives, as well as the activities of their veterans clubs after the war. Next, we have what was our third major collecting area, which the Manuscript Collections embarked upon in 2016. And this collecting area pertains to two interrelated LGBTQ plus advocacy efforts here in Hawaii: the fight against AIDS and the struggle the decade after starting the decade after, for same-sex marriage. As a new and growing collection focus, the materials in this category continue to evolve, so continue to check back in with us to see what we've made available and what new things we have. And then, like I imagine other archives have, we also have in the Manuscript Collections a sort of other or miscellaneous category that don't fit into any of our standard or main collecting areas. And for us, this material is mostly records and papers from late 19th and early 20th century non-governmental organizations that focused on a pan-Pacific view of international relations, but it also includes personal papers, collections from a few notable Hawaii-based composers, scholars, and religious figures. The department employs various strategies to highlight the collections and bring them to wider awareness. So, for example, we have digitized some collections or portions of collections to make them available online, like these photos from the Hawaii War Records Depository. We also curate exhibits based on collections and sponsor related events. This exhibit that you see test layouts for, I sponsored a large reception and symposium that went along with it as a tie-in. And then here are layout views for not layout views, but actual exhibit views of an earlier exhibit that I had curated, in which again I put together a reception inviting actual veterans and their friends and family to come and see not only the materials from collection, but also to talk story, as we say in Hawaii, about the materials. Finally, we host a blog where we post not only highlights of the collections themselves, but also reflections upon the work that we do to make the collections available and preserve them over time. Thanks, and now I'll hand it off to my next colleague.
The Hawaii Congressional Papers collection is in the midst of an effort to digitize parts of the Senator Daniel K. Inouye papers. Senator Inouye, who was a World War II veteran and also a member of the famed 442nd Regimental Combat Team, represented Hawaii in Congress for over 50 years, and his significance to Hawaii is really hard to overstate. We selected series to digitize based on the need to balance research value with concerns for privacy and confidentiality. And the basic process that we use for digitization is something like this. So each folder is scanned by students in our in-house digitization lab, and they go ahead and create a single PDF corresponding to each folder. They perform and correct OCR using Abby Fine Reader, and they also create minimal metadata. After a quality control process, the files and metadata are uploaded to our DSpace repository. And then finally, I create digital object records in ArchiveSpace that are linked as instances to the corresponding archival object record. And those ArchiveSpace digital object records contain links to the records in DSpace.
Much of the work that I have done since being hired into this position 3.5 years ago has focused on making collections available online. So many of our collections have been hidden for years, and this has been a great time to showcase them in image galleries, such as this one created using Omeka, which our library adopted about 2 years ago. These are architectural renderings from the Osipov collection, and you can zoom in and pan around in the images. You can download them, and all the metadata is available once you open the files. This is a really fun project that I did with the help of our map librarian and map technician. They are incredibly skilled and have this great software to create story maps. So this was a natural for the Jean Charlot murals, to plot them across the US, Hawaii, and Mexico. And it's, I think, really beautiful, and each of the items can be clicked on and lead to more information. I also created one for Vladimir Osipov's existing architectural projects across Hawaii. Finally, I'm the only one here using Past Perfect. It's a collection management database built for small museums and historical societies. I use this only for the fine art prints and drawings and photographs that are in the Jean Charlot collection, because we have collection level descriptions in ArchivesSpace, and the books and audiovisual materials are all in the library catalog, but this gives me the ability to showcase things to the item level with images attached. Thank you.
Aloha, this is Helen again. And these are some of the outreach activities that we've conducted. So this is prior Malia joining the department, and instead of a visit, we did an online virtual tour to the Society of American Archivists student chapter. And even though it was virtual, it was very well received. Another effort for outreach has been the development of these posters that could be posted around campus and sent to other archives across the state and other academic institutions that might have an interest in our diversity. The reason I chose these different images is just to capture a reflection of the diversity of holdings that we have. So we have the Chief Justice Richardson, who was the first Hawaiian Chief Justice of our Supreme Court here as a student. We have an image of a Peace Corps worker reading a Fijian newspaper, and the picture from the 442nd Coalition in France. And then the open house that the engineering students would put on every year. So this is just a nice way, a very nice graphic way to advertise our collection. Blog posts are a wonderful avenue of outreach, because either I can create it, as I did for this one, or our students can create it after they've worked on the collection. So this student actually made her own website, and we logged it, linked it to our blog post. And this is a nice way because the patron or the donor can distribute this as well to their network. And then my involvement, or our involvement on different committees, gives us an opportunity for further outreach. So often the campus the communities themselves don't understand what we do. And I am on a campus signage committee, where I'm just going to have signage to say what the different areas of campus were used prior to the development of the university and its cultural characteristics. So this will show not just the images that show the development of the campus, but also records that will talk about the displacement of native tenants and so on. So this is a very good way of advertising and creating awareness of the resources. And then a lot of my work is in records management. And so I have to go to different units if they are open. If they're not, I have to be a little more persistent and educate them about the benefits of records management so that the permanent records are transferred over to the archives. So that's just some of the outreach that we do.
I've had the opportunity to do a lot of outreach in the art and architecture collections here. I've gone out and met with faculty or community groups, presented lectures with professional organizations, and also exhibits. The next several slides will showcase some of the opportunities that I hosted in the reading room here, including this global art history class where they wanted to see original fine art prints, and we have some blocks and plates. I had an architecture research class come in. This is a pre-doctoral program requirement, and it's showing students how to conduct primary source research in an archive. There are several local professional organizations, and I was fortunate to host the Association of Hawaii Archivists, which is a really active local group, and show them how Jean Charlot was this incredible archivist himself, and that's how we're able to provide access to his collection. Honolulu Printmakers is Honolulu's oldest arts organization. They've come in twice, once for a woodcut tour and the other time to look at mezzotints in another artist archive. Finally, Dakamomo focuses on mid-century modern architecture, and this was a really fun tour as part of their national symposium. It was an architecture tour focused on Vladimir Osipov's buildings around town, and I was able to be one of 3 tour stops and focus on the drawings for the buildings that they were visiting. So there are many opportunities for outreach in an archive. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sherman Secchi, and I am the Archives Assistant at the Archives and Manuscripts Department at Hamilton Library at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. My main job here is helping patrons, including the initial phone call, email, or in-person meeting, as well as retrieval and reshelving of the requested material. And I also spend at least some time in the reading room with the patron when we had in-person help in case they have questions for me or in case I have questions for them. It is important to ask the patron questions sometimes because sometimes they don't know they don't know what we have, they don't know how to ask the question properly in order to be helped in the utmost fashion. Our main collections concern the University of Hawaii itself, Hawaii during World War II, and Hawaii's congressional members from Hawaii who served in the House and Senate. And other collections, other manuscript collections, all of which have at least some connection to Hawaii. The majority of our patron research questions or patrons are usually grad students or professors who are writing a dissertation or a book, article, magazine article, and also authors who are writing a book, non-academic type. And also because of the writing extensive requirements that are now required of undergraduates, we also have undergraduates who have been coming in because they have to use primary source materials to write their papers. And we also have the general public come in to use our collections, mostly for genealogical or nostalgic reasons. Maybe a photo of them when they were attending UH or a student paper that they or a family member wrote while attending UH. So during the pandemic, since the library public service departments were all closed to the public, we could not help anybody in person. But during this time, we were scanning the documents and photos for patrons to try to help them as much as we could while we were shut down. We have been slowly getting back to helping at least UH faculty, staff, and students if they need to look at something in the archives. So we are helping them, and we're hoping that by the fall semester we'll be open to the public fully again, where we can help everyone in person. Thank you for your time.
Hello again, this is Leilani Dawson once more, and I'm going to discuss Hamilton Library's use of ArchiveSpace. So around 2014 to 2015, the department migrated from Archivist Toolkit to ArchiveSpace as its platform for descriptive information, starting out by using just the staff interface. We implemented the public user interface, or PUI, for patrons, which is shown here, in 2019, and just this summer, earlier, a couple months ago, we added ArchiveSpace as a drop-down menu option to the library homepage's One search bar. ArchiveSpace is also used by other library departments that hold archival materials, notably the Hawaiian and Pacific collections and the Asia collection. At least one archivist or librarian from each department serves on our library's Archives Committee, which is a subcommittee of our Collection Development and Management Committee, in order to coordinate archives-related policies and procedures and our use of ArchiveSpace. Our ArchiveSpace implementation currently holds around 380 collection records and approximately 550 accession records, but we have many more collections, and for that matter many more accessions, that aren't yet documented in ArchiveSpace. So with that in mind, we have I have, as the main ArchiveSpace administrator here at Hamilton, I have three types of improvements that I think that our use of ArchiveSpace would benefit from seeing made. First of all, I'd want to bring that platform up to date. We still have a fair amount of finding aids and accession records that are locked in legacy formats, including obviously Word and Excel files, but also hard copies that have no electronic format whatsoever. So I want to get those all entered into ArchiveSpace. And also, I want to upgrade the ArchiveSpace version that we're using from 2.5.1 to 3.0 sometime probably next year. I also would like to make our description more complete. In addition to bringing up the percentage of our collections that are covered, or that is covered by ArchiveSpace, I also want to see the overall level of description rise. So right now we have far too many collections that are simple, flat, stub collection records without any series level description or even notes in a lot of cases. I definitely want to see those fleshed out quite a bit with at least series level description and a full set of notes, if not full folder level description. And then finally, third, as you can see here, this is the ArchiveSpace assessment data entry form, and it is one of many aspects of ArchiveSpace functionality that we're simply not even touching. We're also not using any of the built-in reports, let alone the custom report functionality. We're not really using a lot of the sort of math wizardry that ArchiveSpace could do for you. For example, the location and container profiles can be combined in innovative ways, or at least ways that I think are really neat, to do things like calculate your storage space and whether or not a certain collection can fit in a certain space, and we're not really using them in any sort of systematic manner. So I'd like to see us start doing that as well. Finally, the University of Hawaii at Manoa Library is, for the first time in 4 or 5 years, just starting now on a major round of strategic planning. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how we, as the archives, can engage with that process. Hopefully it will start to bear fruit in a few years, and we can really use the strategic planning process to re-envision how we as a department operate and how we fit into the overall library organizational structure. In the meantime, thank you so much once again for checking in and watching our videos, and mahalo.